Yeah, in Buddhism, suffering is because we have wrong ideas about things, wrong notions about things that are, impermanent as being permanent, things that are not, that are very connected, but then we separate them. We have all these notions. Of course, life, there's pain, there's loss, there's, from our habits and unskillfulness as human beings, we cause each other suffering. We cause ourselves suffering because we just don't know who we are and what you know, what is worthy and meaningful to do, and what is harmful and what is not harmful. So, suffering is a lot of unknown. We live mindlessly, not aware of what is right, what is helpful, what is skillful. So we have impulses and habits and notions that are not aligned with really how things work. You lose something, you break something. It's like so, how you react to it, you suffer or not. You lose your parents, and there's pain. But if you have time to take care and grieve properly, and go through the emotion, and you'll find a closeness to your father. I recently lost my father 3 years ago, and man, I went through that sadness and just feeling this remorse for him, and feeling also a relief for him. And so having time to process that correctly. So there's pain, but there's no suffering because I was able to live with him in the last year. So in a way, suffering is a part of life. Things that we lose, and things that we, some of our actions or other people's action. But also we have a choice in how to handle that. I think mindfulness helps us because we learn to know what is appropriate and how to look at things. I would say he's like the only teacher I know that says that you need to learn how to suffer. If you know how to suffer, then you'll suffer less. So, anytime you hear, you try to remove suffering, get rid of suffering. But Thai's got a more organic, humanistic approach that if we learn how to embrace and hold our suffering, then we will understand its cause. So this is the first two noble truths. And once you have understanding of something, its nature and why it came about, that understanding is a kind of already a relief. If you really look at it, when we, have anger at somebody, it's probably because we don't understand why they did something, or their background, or what are the conditions that made them do that, and they are suffering as well. They have many habitual energies transmitted to them from their family. To begin to understand them, you kind of like, it's not like you forgive them and condone their action, but you kind of suffer less because, you kind of get it. Like, yeah, I know why he's like that, or why she behaved like that. So that's looking deeply and understanding suffering. It's like a baby crying, Thai repeatedly reminds us. You hold the baby calm and peaceful. Your anger, your suffering, you begin to understand it. You don't try to stop the baby from crying by slapping it and trying to like tighten it and stuff, but you hold it, and you get to understand it, and your peace and your calm also help. So suffering is inevitable, but how we deal with it is our choice. So this is a kind of one of the key element of Buddhist practice. The Buddha has shared many times that his sole intention is to help relieve suffering. All his teaching, and we need to remember this. Like his hope Buddhist practice is to help relieve suffering. So it's a very therapeutic tradition. It's not to reach purity, enlightenment, and transcend everything, but actually it's learning how to heal and to embrace our suffering. And from that you find relief, and you have compassion, and then you begin to act and help other people. So that's what the Buddha did. That was the model. Once you heal, transform, and you find relief, it's naturally you're gonna have more compassion and a kind of willingness to engage and help relieve suffering of others. And then of course suffering needs to be balanced with happiness and peace and joy and ease. So you have suffering, but it's not only thing that's happening. You're still alive. You still have your parents. You can add to the list, and this and that, both that, and so you can have suffering and happiness and peace if you are mindful, and to take care of it, to not deny it, to not run from it, but not be drowned by it. But there are other things. So when you pay attention to the other non-suffering element, then at least you have some space, you give yourself some time, and the healing will happen. And so this is very important in our practice as well. You have suffering, but that's not the only thing. As people have a little emotion and they are overwhelmed, and they forget that it's just an emotion. They're overwhelmed for it. So some people are addicted to suffering. They like to wail in it constantly. So they don't know how to. That's why they suffer, because they have this idea about themselves. So that's very important to also see the other things happening in the garden. Like you might have a toothache, and when you find relief and stuff, like right now you don't have a toothache. It's like, man, it's a great feeling, right? So all of a sudden you have joy. So you have to focus also the things that are going well, and you got to train to remember those things. That will give you energy to embrace your suffering when it comes. So don't just waste your time, and so when a challenge comes and you're overwhelmed by it, it's because you haven't practiced and trained yourself. So that's what it means to learning how to suffer. And you train to know how to generate your own happiness and joy and peace. So when you need to, you have the capacity to hold the baby. But if you're full of anger, and your mind is so stressed and occupied, the way you hold the baby is gonna cause more suffering. You see, so you have to be taking care of yourself. And it's hard because not a lot of people have that. They're quite busy and occupied. And it requires attention and training.